Okay, I've been a member of Zig Zag for about 32 years, I think. At the present time, under the way we're going now, I'm a train controller, a signaller and a section car operator, and with a bit of luck and a fair wind, I'll qualify as a guard sometime soon. I go back with this place to about the late 1950s, and I was working for the big railway and was working out initially at Capity and then out along various of those stations out as far as Coolar and Craboon and so on. And my then girlfriend came from Capity. She was the daughter of the Capity postmaster. She worked on the telephone exchange at Portland, and so we got together, and one of the things we used to look for somewhere to go and have a picnic or something, so somebody suggested we come here. Well, at that stage, it was this place was only just being talked of. There was nothing like Zig Zag Railway as such, hadn't actually started. So you could drive all the way down here on a partly bitumen track and partly gravel track, and the trust, the Hassans Walls Zig Zag Trust, had built some picnic shelters and things, wreckage of which is still up there amongst the trees. I think they go back to the Depression. They were probably paid for with dole money, whatever that scheme was. They had then, work for the dole type thing. They probably got the cement cheap from Portland Cement Works. They probably got a subsidy too. So we started coming here. Well, then I was taken with this place, and I was a train enthusiast. So when this got going, after a while, I joined, but I was too tied up with other things to take an active part. So it wasn't until about 32 years ago or thereabouts that I became actively involved, at which stage Zig Zag had built from bottom points to top points, but was struggling to build onwards. So that was roundabout when I joined. By the time I really got active, they'd actually got through to Clarence after having a pause at Mount Sinai Halt. So I started off becoming a guard here, and that was my first involvement. And then a while later, the diesel rail cars came on the scene, and they interested me, and I thought they were something I could handle that I might have been able to handle these beasts. So I got involved with them, and round about then we started trying to run 7 days a week, and I'd retired from full-time work at that stage, so I could juggle around. It used to be with the rail motors, you could catch the very first train out of Sydney at about 5:50 or something. Used to get up here about 9:15, just in time to start the rail motors and go up the hill there and run 3 trips with the rail motors, basically the times we run today, and then bring them back down here and catch the 5:36 interurban train home. So, yeah, it was a big day, but I was younger then, and it was, I used to enjoy the trips, and I very much enjoyed being here. And then I got bitten with the bug of these things, so I then did my boiler ticket and reciprocating steam engine driver's ticket, and duly qualified as a fireman, and was on my way, I thought, to be getting qualified as a steam driver when we had a pause in operations, and so that's where I stalled. But okay, well, my wife's always been sympathetic up to a fair degree, so she'd come up here on occasions if we drove up. She'd do a bit of work in the shop, or whatever, did the odd little bit of gardening here. She's still a member. She's member 934 and very fond of that machine next door. That's why she was member 934, because she liked the look of that, so we scrounged to get the number plate for that. Unfortunately, that car's gone, but yeah. No, so she's fairly supportive. You know, you can push the envelope too far, but no, she's pretty good. So Alan Gabbett and I, the rail safety regulator, approved us as the trainers for the place. So Alan used to look after the steam, and I used to basically look after the guards and the rail motor people, and then we did start to have a signal on the odd occasion, and if we had two trains running. So I also became the trainer and assessor for that as well. So yeah, some of the ones that were here when I first got here were the guys who started the show, you know, and they were the real pioneers. And some of them were real characters indeed, you know, they were. You know, and they're still, if you get somebody old and bold, they still tell you stories that make your hair stand on end and stuff. But you know, you've got the late Alan Gabbett, who put a hell of a lot of time and energy into the place, and was known to cut the odd corner in his relationship with the big railway to benefit this railway. John Cooper was an old workmate of mine on the big railway as a train controller, but he was a foundation member here. I remember when he was secretary here, still working on the big railway, and he did a hell of a lot for the place, and he was a character. Then you had Harold Fowler, who was the real old man of the railway, and he was just tapering off when I first came here. But all the old timers, Harold had taught them how to drive steam locomotives, because he was the acme of steam locomotive drivers. Yeah, he was, you know, he was the sort of bloke they plucked out, say, to drive the commissioner's train or something. He was very highly thought of, and the whole Fowler family were railway orientated from his father, Pierce Fowler, downwards. His father was a raving eccentric, but an excellent, wonderful steam train driver out round Binnaway and Lithgow and Mudgee out that away on the Wabigo line. And I had Lumpy, who's down around Albury, whose proper name I can't think of. Guy lived at Clarence, who was been a loco inspector with the big railway. He had a lot to do with this place starting. Bit of a prickly customer when he wanted to be, but still had a lot. And then there's one bloke who still takes an interest, but it's now in Queensland, Johnny Flynn, and he was the first employee of Zig Zag Railway. And John was and still is a very competent fitter machinist, and he, you know, did a lot of the work in getting these beasts going and keeping them going, and not only just the bare whatever, you know, he was entrepreneurial and a good driver, an engineman on his own self too. And he moved up to Queensland and then spent quite a bit of time fairly recently rebuilding a loco for Mary Valley people. You had John Compignoni from down the road. He came from the semi-railway family. John was an electrician who worked at the power station. He was a wonderful bloke for getting things done, but there was the odd rule or regulation or procedure that got bent. John was more attuned to the result than following the process, but he was a good one. And you know, you've got more recent guys. It's great to see Graham Bedwin bob up again. Graham put a lot of time into this place, was the resident, member in residence at one stage, lived out the back of there in a carriage that got burnt in the fire. And there are others whose, you know, I'm forgetting whose name escaped me. There's not a lot of people have sort of stayed the course. Although there's a few of them I think are going to drift back. Oh, well, we've got people, and I'm sure they're going to drift back in one form and another, I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll see Lyndon Ruco back here. Now, these move jobs, I'd be very, very surprised if Simone de Berzeville doesn't get back here for something, because, Simone lived in the house there at Clarence, grew up standing on the rungs of the ladder to wave to the trains. Was on the footplate at the youngest conceivable age she could be. Was the first, I think she can fairly lay claim to being the first female steam locomotive driver, at least in New South Wales and possibly in Australia. But New South Wales, I think I'd argue. Well, she's very, very, very active with the picnic train at the moment. Then we've got other people active with the picnic train. You've got Michael Grantham, for argument's sake, he dates back to beforehand. Matty Milroy dates back. They both put a lot in here over the years. I'm very conscious of the family side of it here, because not only is my wife a member, but there are people here now who I remember when they were still school kids or whatever, both Lee and Mandy I think I taught to be guards, and Lee I taught to be a rail motor driver, and I think Hayley Swartz might have been in there somewhere too. So they are family. I watch with great interest how they are getting on and how they're back in the setup here, and even people that aren't back here but keep in touch. Simone de Berzeville and Lyndon Ruco and Evan Deacon and people like that. Like, I knew them, as I say, some of them when they were still at school, some when they were first year out of school. Yeah. I watched them even romance. I can tell you stories about Lee and no. I won't tell you about the train being delayed because the guard wasn't in his locality, and when they found him, he was in the waiting room with a lady friend and had lost track of the time. And he will admit it if you ask him, yeah. But isn't it wonderful they're both still here? Yeah. No, it's always been a friendly place. Zig Zag's unique because it combines about three things that people that have got any interest in railways can relate to. You can come to Zig Zag and not be interested in trains, but enjoy yourself because of the scenery and the very experience of going up and down. Or you can come to Zig Zag and marvel at seeing the steam locomotive doing its thing. Or you can come to Zig Zag because you like riding on trains. Or, I hope when we get the ways of doing it, you might be interested in signalling, for argument's sake. Like, I keep pushing the point, we're going to have, or we have, I believe, the best collection of workable semaphore signals, certainly in New South Wales and possibly in Australia. Signals of the traditional semaphore style. And I reckon that we, in the fullness of time, can almost lay claim to being the Museum of New South Wales Railway Mechanical Signalling Technology or some such thing, because I think there's mightn't be used, but I think there's an interest there, and if we can sooner or later package something whereby people who are signalling nuts could come up and we could let them spend the day, put them on a train, but then get them off down here, for argument's sake, let them see the signal box here, take them up to top points, leave them there for half an hour or something and watch what happens, and then go on. I think there's a market there. We can't take a whole trainload of people in the signal box. You know, it'd take you 25 minutes to get them in and 35 minutes to get them out. But if you had, say, a booked group or something and somebody who'll take them and explain and whatever, I think, you know, and I mean, we've got the other thing that we can work on, but not this week. You know, we've got people keep popping up and saying, where can I go to get good photos of zigzag trains? Well, we can work on that and in due course get the path from here to Clarence back into working order, and then maybe some signposting 200 yards down here, there's a good photo spot or whatever, that sort of thing. And I would see that limited numbers again. You might even have a situation where somebody is really keen, drop off 3 or 4 of the local photo cod at number 1 viaduct at the platform there and leave them there to take a picture of the train going down over the viaduct and then coming back bottom road or middle road, top road, pick them up on the way back. And that's all those things I think are, you know, are things that can attract people here. But it'd be wonderful if we could have 2 trains running on the one day, because the spectacle of the toing and froing at top points with the 2 trains crossing and changing engines and papoodling around, you know, there's a market for that too. I think there's a market for the rail motors, and I can't prove it, but I think that if somebody would wave a magic wand and get them running, I think they would be more than self-supporting but with small-sized groups, so that we can tailor particular activities that they can do off the rail motors that they can't do off a train with 300 people on. I mean, you can't sort of stop in the middle of somewhere and let 300 people get off at number 1 viaduct. You never get them back on again, you know. See, we used to have this stunt when I first came here, and it used to work, surprisingly enough, of it passing the word around that people could get off up here at Cockenden and have a barbecue. So you work out what carriage you want them on in the train, get them put in that carriage so the driver knew to stop that door of that carriage there. We used to have this real party trick where the fireman would get a shovel full of the fire and run across to the barbecue and light the barbecue. And that went down like nobody's business. And people, you know, people had weddings there and birthday parties and all manner of things just up there at Cockenden. But, you know, it takes a little bit of coordinating. You've more or less got to have a master of ceremonies to have it all lined up. You've got to get them in the right carriage. You've got to brief the rest of the train not to all jump out because the train stopped out of course. But, you know, so I think there's quite a bit of scope, you know, and there's even the walk one way and catch the train the other way bit. There used to be, and I'm sure there would be again, people who think that'd be a good fun. I'll go for a walk down, I'll time it so they can get a couple of pictures, then I'll get down here and then I'll catch the train back up there. I won't have to walk back up there. The first thing I would love to do at Clarence, we've got 2 beautiful signal boxes here, but as I said earlier, it's limited on how we can let people look at it. I would like to build a signal box at Clarence at platform level, like the one at Newnes used to be, and set up so that people could look in through the window and see the signal or the guard or whoever's going to be working it, you know, and if he feels so whatever, he might invite the odd one in to have a look. But so that's what I would like to see. The elevated ones look classical, but the people can't see. But if you had that at Clarence, that's be the first thing I'd like. And then I like signalling anyway, so more signals, providing they do something, No, I don't want them for decoration, bugger that. But as long as they do something, means you would end up, if you think of all the signals you'd need at Clarence to do all the things you'd want to do, you'd end up with probably a lever frame of 20 odd levers, so it'd be a reasonable sized, and then if everything's got a signal, they can sit there and watch him, and by the time the signaller puts the signal back from the train arriving, pulls some sort of signal off for the engine to go forward, pulls the lever to change the points up that end, locks them with another lever, pulls the signal off there comes back, and then depending on what you've done with the level crossing in the meantime, then pull another lever and another lever to that end. You're going to see him do about 25 movements. It's all going to look Mickey Mouse. Now, if you go one stage further and you get some very smart engineering type to go back into history and make your level crossing gates there so that they work from this signal box. You've got another bit of gadgetry. When I was a kid, Penrith West signal box controlled a double set of gates, like the 4 gates in all, on the Castlereagh Road level crossing. And to close and open these gates, apart from the fact that he had to put all the signals to stop, but he used to wind a wheel that looked like the wheel that the bloke steered the Cutty Sark with, and this would open the gates. Well, us kids used to stick it back up there and say, can we do that? And he used to think that was a great idea. But if you had something like that, and here you've got this, and the gates open or the gates close, so I reckon a signal box is an absolute Monty. The viaducts and the tunnels are in effect a museum. The concept of the zigzag is in effect a museum. To be perfectly honest, what are we going to put in the museum? No, seriously, I mean, you're going to have a museum. You've got to have exhibits, and I don't know. I'm not against it, but it doesn't jump out and hit me. I would much rather see, and this applies for everything, much rather have a museum that works than a static museum. It's like seeing a sailing boat go down Sydney Harbour with bare masts and a diesel engine driving it. Looks so much nicer if it's got jib and foresail and whatever. That's what it's all about. It's but if there was enough people interested, I certainly wouldn't say no. That's a stupid idea. The other thing that I'd like us to explore at Clarence, but this is very much in your side of the world, not mine, noticing that cafe at whatever's closed, and thinking back to what Bell used to be when I was young, I seriously wonder if it wouldn't be viable to have a 7-day-a-week coffee shop there as an adjunct to Zigzag.
When you say what Bell was like when you were young?
There was 2 hamburger shops at Bell, and then at later stage, I'm talking at the intersection, where you go up here and you either go Bell's Line Road or Mount Vic. On that corner there, and if you look carefully, there was a Swiss restaurant there. There was a Golden Fleece service station up there that at one stage sold hamburgers. There's another building straight ahead, which if you look at it critically used to sell hamburgers. And all the young tearaways from Lithgow want to do something of a night. Let's tear up the bitumen between here and Bell and have a hamburger and come home again. And I think that, there's pretty sparse spots along Bell's Line of Road at present, post-COVID and post-bushfires. And I seriously wonder if it would be viable for us to have but it'd have to be commercial, it'd have to do its thing, and we'd have to not trip over it then. I think there's really only one prerequisite, and or 2 perhaps. One's to be enthusiastic and the other one's to be dependable. I don't think it matters whether they've got a background of playing trains out there, or whether they're they've never seen a train in their life. If they like the look of it and they want to come and volunteer, we've got the scope here and the ability to train people from dot zilch. So they haven't got to be somebody who's been peddling out here. Okay, that won't do them any harm, but it's not 100% relevant either these days. Different signalling system, different motive power, different braking systems on the freighters, da-da-da-da-da. No, I think if somebody, if they're keen and they can work in with other people, there's got to be, with a place like this, there's got to be a bit of give and take, and you've got to be prepared to help me when I'm battling. No matter if you're the something and I'm the something else. If you see me battling, you come over and give me a hand. You don't just stand there and laugh at me and Vicky versa. So you want that. You've got to be able to fit in with other people. A bit of people sympathy, or you can get on with people a bit. You can talk to people a bit. That in 50 years' time, if somebody came around, I'd like the show still to be running. I'd like it, a few of the things that I think are incomplete at the moment that are relevant. They're not just gewgaws. Could be done, signalling completed at Clarence, signalling completed up here for argument's sake. Just a couple of things, reactivate the couple of platforms that have got burnt. Beyond that, be alive to the possibilities of your carriage shed and your running shed. Museum, if you can see the need. It's a thing that the POMs do a bit, and I sometimes wonder, like for argument's sake, we've got that garret out the back there. Now, probably from a business point of view, we'll never be able to justify using it. It's sort of too big for what we do. It would cost you, a fortune. It's better, you get better value for your buck doing up 934 and then going out the back and finding the bits of a couple of the other engine, then 1072. It's a bit sad that 1072 isn't a runner, considering she's the City of Lithgow, but what has happened in POM land, and to a limited extent in some other places, is you've got clubs within clubs. So you might say here we're going to form the 402 club. Now, so it still comes under the broad umbrella, but it has its own little hierarchy. It funds itself, it decides what it's going to do. Now, they've done it quite a bit in England. I know a bloke, gentleman by the name of Thompson, he called in here one time. He's got a delightful little Great Western saddle tank engine down at Didco, or Didcot, however you pronounce it, which comes under the care of the Great Western Society, but it actually belongs to Brian Thompson. Now, he's got a little group of people called the, 36, whatever it is, group. They look after it, and then they sort of lend it to the Didcot, who undertake to do work on it, and from time to time it's even travelled to other places. 5917 that's running around on the picnic train at the moment, I think belongs to a consortium of 4 or 5 or 6 private individuals. But from the day they got it, it was in the care of Lachlan Valley or whatever, and most of the consortium were Lachlan Valley people. But they were the people, they put their hand in their pocket to buy it with the thought that we don't want then to get some other mob of palookas take over the society and sell it on us. So they've kept ownership to a lesser extent, and without wanting to get into any discussion or argument about this, to some extent, that's the situation at Dorrigo. You've got an organisation within an organisation up there. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of it, and you'd get a headache trying to find them. But I think, with something like 402, it might be something that could be done, or you do what Dorrigo does. They're very good. Keith Jones is very good at setting up funds for specific things. Like somebody tells him that, cement wagon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is going to be scrapped at Whoop Whoop. So, and he has to look at his list of exhibits at Dorrigo, and he says, we haven't got one of them. So he has to talk to a couple of the other directors and whatever. And they say, geez, no, we should have one of them. Well, he then sets up a fund, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wagon fund. And you can donate specifically to it, and the money's not going to go anywhere else. He accounts for it, he acknowledges your specific donation, and he tells them when it's done. Now they don't, in that case, they don't maintain the ownership, but he's sort of, that's how he's funded the thing, rather than say, give us a donation and we'll put it to a good cause. And people say, oh yeah, you'll put it to a good cause, all right. You'll take the board will all go to the 5-star restaurant, and maybe crowdfunding is what you do, but you'd have to light up every enthusiast in Australia, and you'd separate the men from the boys a bit actually, because those that are always squawking about restoring stuff, See, Dorrigo bought the 7 South Maitland Railways 10-class engines because they wanted one, and for whatever reason they couldn't be sold except as 7. Well, he set up a time payment scheme for that. It's been going for years. They just did the final purchase the other week. Well, I was kicking in, $5 a fortnight or something, because I thought that's a worthy cause, a distinctive locomotive, peculiar to that line, blah, 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 blah. And, maybe something like whereas, this has got to earn its keep to an extent, something like that. You've got to find some way of possibly of subsidising it. I don't know. Yeah, just a thought.